It's me, Andy, from Bits Gaming. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you're getting ready for Christmas. Have fun with your family. That's what it's all about, have fun. And I hope you got all your Christmas presents you wanted, and hopefully some good ones on the computer side. Okay, today's video, Alder update. Windows 10. You remember we had those problems, sound problems on Windows 11? No problems at all under Windows 10, so I think that must be some sort of driver fault. So there's no popping or crackling at all under Windows 10 in any game. Sluttering, freezing, micro freezing, none of that on any of the major graphic cards. On the built-in IGP, there was a bit, and the NVIDIA 1030, because they're low-end graphic cards, there was a bit only on a couple games, which we'll talk about in a minute. Time Spy, PC Mark. Now if you remember, on Windows 11, if you ever use Time Spy, PC Mark, you get bar graphs at the end, saying what your clock speed's been going out, and your frame rate's been going out as it's been running. They didn't come up under Windows 11, don't know why, and it also didn't give you a recommendation how fast your PC is. Worked no problem under Windows 10. Now there has been an update, I have to say, since we did our last benchmark, so it could be a fix, but it didn't say anything about fixing that at all under Windows 11. I don't know why it didn't come up. It didn't come up with an error or any grey things or anything on the screen. It just didn't show you the charts. It's just a bit bizarre, really. Watch Dogs 2. Didn't test it under Windows 11 because I think it's on Intel's chart saying it don't work, and it don't work. I totally agree with them. Under Windows 10, it didn't work either. So pass on that. It starts, then just says no. And it does come up with an error every now and then. And I think this error is saying you broke the DRM. Not happening. Division 2 worked fine. Under the Windows 11, it wouldn't run at all, basically like Watch Dogs. Under Windows 10, worked fine. It did crash twice, but the game does crash anyway, so not maybe down to Alder Lake. It crashed twice, I think, in, I don't know, we did about, I don't know, a dozen runs, 15, 16 runs, and it crashed twice out of the blue. Don't know why it just did. But majority of the time it won fine. So at least we'd run it for at least an hour and a half doing all sorts of stuff. It won fine, you could say. We run Farcry Primal. That's the dinosaur version, the prehistoric version, if you want to call it, of Far Cry. One's fine under Windows 10. Didn't do it under Windows 11 again because Intel said it don't work. But it worked fine under Windows 10. Assassin's Creed Valhalla game works fine under Windows 10, which they said it doesn't work under Windows 11. So it works fine under Windows 10, no problem at all really. Everything worked fine. CSGO, I said the micro freezing on Intel's IGP to 770 and NVIDIA's 1030 graphic card. They're both low end. There's a few micro freezes, but not like it where it was really noticeable, where you run around and go, what? Now I've got to admit, even when I did test it under 11th gen, there was some freezes there, so that might just be part of the game. But under Windows 11, it weren't playable. It was literally a nightmare. It was freezing everywhere. It was just horrid. Regardless of what graphic card you had, it was horrid. The Witcher, Wild Hunt. Again, Intel's IGP 770 and NVIDIA's 1030, low end. There's a few micro freezes as you go through the village. But not noticeable. Again, it was noticeable before, and when we looked at the benchmark charts on the afterburner, it show you a lot of drops on the 1% low, big drops, and that wasn't really happening under Windows 10. So that's another bonus at the end of the day. Okay, Far Cry 6. Remember, under Windows 11, when I run the RX 6600, it got stuck at 60 frames a second. We checked all the settings, they're all turned off, no limiter lock on. It just got stuck at 60 frames per second. Something bizarre. And it only happened on the Alder Lake system, because when we checked it on the Horizon system and when we tested it on the Intel 11th gen, no problem. So it was something to do with Alder Lake. Don't ask why. It was something to do with Windows 11. One or two. So that's me done for this video. Again, have a great Christmas, and I will see you in. I should post another video on Monday or Tuesday after Christmas, after Boxing Day, and we should have maybe a few videos between here and New Year's Day. So have a good one, and don't get too drunk. That's all. Have fun. So there's the system specs. Only thing different from last time is we've got the 1650 and we're running Windows 10 instead of Windows 11. And the game drivers may be slightly updated as well, and the game software may be updated also. So, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Intel's built-in IGP 770. See there, we're running on the lows. We're on, even though we're in 720p, we've got everything turned off. Basically, we're only in the 20 frames at best. We are on a limit. Yeah, it's raining at this time, so it might be a bit lower than normal, but it's only going to be a slight decrease. But I mean, it does play. I mean, you can put on the dynamic resolution to lower it even more if you wanted to, but the picture quality is going to go downhill. Okay, now going over to Nvidia's 1030. So now we're gaining a little bit more traction. It's still very low in the 30s, 720p again. I don't know if you noticed, the colour palette changed. I've said this before. Intel's colour palette seems to be a bit off. Now it's also possible the lights changed in the game, which we have no control over. We now switch over to AMD's 550. See, it's gone a bit orange. I don't know why. Some odd reason it always goes a bit orange for some bizarre reason when I'm recording off the other system. I don't know if it's to do with capture card. I don't know. But yeah, so the frame rates again's increased, not by a massive margin, but probably about 5 frames above Nvidia's 1030. Now we switch over to 1080p, and you see basically now we're on a struggle with Nvidia 1030. It's not going to have nothing of it. I mean, it was on low on 720, but I thought we'd test it out while we can on 1080p, and it's too low. Okay, now on the AMD 550, 1080p. Again, this is not the graphic card. Well, it's going to be orange. It's something to do with the way it records. I don't quite understand why. I've not managed to crack it yet. It does on some games and don't do it on others. But yeah, you can see the frame rate is still better. It's just playable. Still just on the 30 limit, really. I mean, you're pushing it on 1080p. It's now on the 1650. I need to do a review on this card. See, the frame rate's great. We're on low 1080p, lower settings again, but it has no problem running at all. The 1650. We switch over to the RX 6600. Again, 1080p, lower settings, and you can see it's walking it. It's not struggling at all. basically this car is twice as fast as the 1650. The 1650 is twice as fast as the 550, and they're like 3 times faster than the built-in benchmark. So yeah, going pretty good. Back to the 1650, this time on ultra settings. So you can see it's playable. We're in the 30s. I mean, ideally you probably play this one setting lower to get that extra boost. But I mean, at the end of the day, it looks great. Can't complain. I don't really see any slacking or stuttering playing it at this resolution. But I ain't gone round and got lots of fighting going on. So yeah, as I said, you probably play this at setting downwards. Starting off with the RX 6600, 1080p ultra settings, and you can see it runs fine. I mean, it's a great card. I do like the RX 6600. It's a pity the prices of graphic cards are stupid, because this card will be usually around the £280 mark otherwise, but it's not. I mean, all the cards we're buying at the moment are at least £100 more than they should be, even the low end stuff. But otherwise, this is a great card. I would recommend it to everybody, especially if it was the right price. Okay, we made a chart. Now, if you wanted to compare anything, it'll be Nvidia's 1030 versus AMD's RX 550. The RX 550 wins hands down, but it does have an extra 2 gig of memory. Even though Nvidia's 1030 does have faster GDR memory. Also on there, the 1650 again plays well. It played great. It does. I won't play it at ultra. As I said, I'll play it probably on high settings at 1080p, and you'd be fine at the end of the day. I mean, obviously the RX 6600 has no problem for a low-end mid-range card. Just going through the settings. So we've got 720p, everything turned off, what can be turned off, and otherwise everything's on low. So Intel's IGB 770, it still has the micro freezes, as I said earlier, but not as bad as what it was in Windows 11. Otherwise it plays pretty okay. Accidentally I'm shooting my own teammates there. Not very good of me. You can see there's a micro freeze just there. There's quite a few of that on the 770. So now we're on the 1030, Nvidia 1030. Now you've got to remember this is the GDR5 version card, not the GDR4 card. There's 2 versions of it. This is supposed to be the quickest one, according to the benchmarks I've seen. You can see it's way higher. We're well into the hundreds for 720p lowest settings. This is the sort of settings you want to be playing at. Ideally, getting no freezes, no nothing, playing a game. AMD 550, again, same sort of thing, high frame rate, different map, so I can't compare it to what it was 100% with the Nvidia card. Unfortunately, yeah, you keep coming on there and they keep rotating the maps. Yeah, I could keep going around in circles until we get the same maps over and over again, but ideally you want to see all the maps, don't you, really? We now switch back to the Intel's at 770 IGP, but this time at 1080p. And you can see the frame rate's gone down quite a bit. It was in the 50s, 60s a minute ago with all batched together. So it's still playable. I suppose ideally in the real world, this game, you don't want to go no lower than 100 frames because, as I said, the drops can be quite drastic. But it still looks alright. Can't complain. At the end of the day, it's one of the games what Intel will manage to get working. We switch over to the Nvidia 1030 at 1080p. Again, all the same settings. All everything's on lowest settings or items turned off. So yeah, she's way better than the obviously RGB. Does extremely well. Okay, now on the 550 1080p. Game runs fine at the end of the day. I mean, if someone asked me what's the best 1030 or the 550, well, they both have good points and bad points. Sometimes the 1030 comes out a bit faster than the 550, or in some cases I've seen it quite a bit faster, and vice versa. We saw it in Assassin's Creed, 550 was way faster. But the main advantage, I think, is that the RX 550 has got 4 gigs of memory, and I think 2 gigs of memory, well, even 4 gigs of memory is way too low for today's gaming. We'll switch over to the 1650. And you can see the frame rate's gone, well, gained up 100 frames extra, probably, at least, over the 550 and the 1030. Plays fine. Obviously, it's not improving my gameplay. So, but it's playing a lot smoother. It's a great card. Very good card. AMD's RX 6600, 1080p lower settings. So you can see it's flying. There's no trouble at all. This is probably the setting people will probably play on anyway. Lower settings. As I said, the graphics don't change much. And you want the highest frame rate possible when you're playing competitive gaming. Just going to change the settings to max for the 1650 and the 6600. Now on the Nvidia 1650, 1080p, we've maxed everything out now. If there's a difference, it's one game I don't actually look at the graphics, you just play. I mean, there may be a difference, I don't know, I've not really noticed. Okay, the RX 6600, is obviously extremely high. There's no problem playing it at all. At 1080p with everything maxed on. I'm not actually tested this game or any games with VSync on because we want to see what the maximum frame rates are. I mean, in this game, you may come out a way smoother gameplay.
Counter-terrorists win.
The Witcher Wild Hunt. We use the presets for this, so you've got processing presets and graphics presets. We use both. You're either on low, ultra. For anything else out of the ordinary, I would say so. So this is Intel's IGP 770 running in 720p. Like I said, it's still had a few micro freezes around here as I was running through. Let's just see there. And yes, I do run the thing over and over again to just make sure, and it did keep doing the same thing. Switch over to the Nvidia 1030. You can still see basically these low-end graphic cards are at maximum performance. They're really going some. How long will your cards last? Keep pushing them to the maximum all the time. That's another thing. They don't ever sound like they're making a right racket when they're playing. But yeah, you just got to remember your cards at 100% nearly all the time trying to play these games. RX 550, say we can still the best of the budget cards. Still seems to do that slightly better than the 1030. It's quite surprising because I did see a lot of benchmarks. The 1030 was beating the 550 hands down, but the games I'm testing, it seems to be the other way around. Back on the Nvidia 1030, we didn't do the IGP because it, well, we did, and it literally died, so we didn't bother putting it on the screen. I mean, this is low as it is, but it's playable. I don't know how much it'll be when you get to the city and there's a lot of action going on. Might be a bit odd. You might have to go back to 720. Switch over to the RX 550. And it's very similar performance with the Nvidia 1030. Runs okay, looks okay. He played okay, like I said, there weren't really any major stuttering except on the 770. And I think there was a little bit on the 1030. I don't remember being only on the 550, but there may be. Depends how much you want to play it. I mean, I did benchmark it, this game, for a few hours, seeing how it would play. Switch over to the 1650. And she's well into the hundreds now. Not really struggling at all. Don't forget to select low settings. And don't forget, there is supposed to be an update for this coming out with RX ray tracing. When that's going to be, I don't know. And that's an official update, not a third party update. Yeah, it runs fine. Like I said, very well into the hundreds. Running smooth. Can't complain at all. So now on the RX 6600, 1080p, lower settings. And you can see she's winning the 200 mark now. She's not worried about anything. Take a look at the textures before we update, because there is a texture change. We go straight to Ultra from lower settings. So yeah, it runs fine. No problem at all. So now I've gone straight to Ultra preset on the graphics and high, because it's not an Ultra, on post processing. You can see straight away the graphics are improved on the textures on the floor, lots more stones, lots more detail, looks great. And this is on the 1650, it's running well. Obviously when RX ray tracing comes in, this card and probably the RX 6600 will probably fall apart, like most games with the ray tracing turned on. So I made the 100 barrier on average for the RX 6600, and the 1% loads are down to 89. So it runs well, can't complain. The RX 6600 and the 1650 okay, it was a lot slower, but it still was in the 50-60 mark range. So both these cards run in ultra mode. I don't know when the RX ray tracing is coming. All I know it's coming. And it'd be nice to see. Mind you, I've got to finish the game. I've been at it several years. Okay, the Intel IGP. It works okay on 720. Got to remember, we're not in a city where there's a lot of people, so it probably drop even more. You can see where the 1% logo is right down. So as I said earlier, the micro freezes are still there, but not as bad as what they were in Windows 11. Then you got the 1030 versus AMD's 550. I would personally go with a 4 gig card over 2 gig, because everything these days wants lots and lots of memory. Then you got the 1650. Does great for the price. Well, say for the price, all cards are still overpriced by loads of money. But yeah, I mean, the game plays well at the end of the day, and you still have quite a few drops on the 1% low, regardless of what card you have. Division 2. Yes, it works. If it was a DRM problem, I'm not quite sure why Windows 11 would affect it over Windows 10. Surely it would affect both systems. But it's working. We're on the IGP 770 at 720p. You'll see we get the average of 40 frames a second, 1% low is 28. So there's a lot of going on at the moment. I think we're on like tier 4 or something like that. So there's a lot of action going around the map at this time. We're at 100% scale, as always, on all our game cards. No dynamic resolution, no nothing like that. So it's all set to one thing. And obviously no VSync, because we obviously want to check how the frame rate works. Okay, now we've switched up to 1080p. still on Intel's IGP 770. You can see the frame rate's now dropped. I thought we'd test it out, see if it handle 1080p. Yeah, we're in the 20s. It's really too late to play this type of game because a lot of shooting going on. I mean, it looks fine. Graphics, there's no glitches in the graphics. I think it's just running too low. I mean, what you could try 720p, maybe a medium or high settings, or just leave it on what we had a minute ago, lower settings. Switch over to the Nvidia 1030. Select 1080p, lower settings. We're in the 30s. 1% low, still low. I mean, yeah, you are pushing it. I mean, this is quite, what's it, what, 2-year-old game at worst state. And only 2 gig of memory on this card. It's pushing the limits, really. It's not much better than the built-in RGB for this game. But I mean, you may be able to get away with it at 1080p. At lower settings. Depends what you feel like when you're playing it. I mean, I didn't find any major freezing while playing it. And when I was doing some shooting, it seemed to work fine. Now on the RX 550. Again, 1080p, lower settings. Yes, it's quicker than the Nvidia 1030. Again, that probably goes down to the 2 gig of memory. Yeah, no problems. Runs fine. I mean, the game looks great. And then on lower settings. I mean, you're not going to moan regardless. Like I said, it looked great on Intel's RGB. We switch over to Nvidia 1650. You can see the frame rate's now shot right up. This car's having no problem at all. Runs fluently. There's no bugs, anything at all. It runs as you expect, fine. And obviously looks great, no problem at all. And we're doing well in the 150, 1% low is 90 frames. So got no problem at all playing the game. Now switch over to the RX 6600. See the frame rate's now flying. We're in the 150s, what 70, 80s for the 1% low. Now don't forget, I have no control over the weather, the daylight, if it rains, dark or whatever. All we do is we wait until what I have been doing, go to the same spot. Once the sun comes up, like wait 10 minutes or so, so it looks like the same time of day, and go out and just play. That's the only thing I can do, really. They don't have a built-in clock, so I can't say what one time of day is to another. Now switch back to the 1650. Now we're on ultra settings. Now you can see obviously the frame rate is now gone down to the average of 35. 1% low is now in the 20s. So ideally you probably play this in maybe high or medium settings because it's probably pushing it, because obviously when the action starts you can get a lot going on. Not that I noticed any freezing in the game when I was playing, but obviously it depends how you want to play. But yeah, I mean, it looks great. And obviously, as I said, the weather's changed now. It looks dull in so and so. But you can see the rain on the floor. Just in case you're wondering why I don't use the built-in benchmark. Well, I used to. But I have noticed that if you look at this benchmark to what we recorded playing, this is saying we've got at least 5 to 10 frames more over our gameplay. That's the reason. Okay, this is a different spot, so this could be higher frame rate here. But at the end of the day, we want to try and play it. We want to benchmark in gameplay mode. Okay, now on the RX 6600. We're in the 60s on Ultra. Again, obviously, even the RX 6600, it's not flying at the end of the day, but okay, we are doing 60 frames a second, 1% lows in the 50s, so we ain't going to struggle. But again, you see the weather's changed again, sun's starting to come out, dry off the rain off the floor, off the roads. Yeah, it was good. By the way, the other thing is I've turned off, because we've got the RX 6600, we've turned off HDR, because the other cards don't support HDR, so to make it look equal, we've got no HDR setting on the RX 6600. So yeah, I mean, she's runs fine. I do love playing Division. It's a game you can just come straight on and have a shootout for an hour and have fun.
Detecting additional hostile contacts.
Okay, now we've got the charts. So we go back to the RGP 770 from Intel. 720p, it played okay. As I said, I don't see any major freezing or stuttering or anything like that, or any major graphic glitches. Worked fine. 1030 versus 550. I think again, AMD won hands down, and both beat the Intel RGP at 1080p. No problem there. The 1650, the RX 6600, and no problems playing the game at all. At ultra settings, the 1650 is on the limit, so you probably want to put that on high or medium settings. Otherwise, everything played fine without any graphic glitches or freezing. So Farcry Primal didn't work under Windows 11. Well, I never tried it, but Intel says it doesn't work at this moment in time. It's 5-6 years old now. We're in 720p at highest settings, not ultra, highest settings. So it runs fine, looks great at 720p. I saw no graphic glitches, no freezing, no nothing really. Sound all worked fine. I mean, it looks great, no problem. We do this run about 50, 60 times, so and go down to the lake below. So there was no real problem running on this IGP. So we're on the NVIDIA 1030 now, still at 720p and high settings. So yeah, the frame rate's now gone up over the IGP. So yeah, we're doing well. Again, this is a 6-year-old game, 5 years. I think come out 2016. So I mean, it looks great still. I mean, you can't complain really. I play it all the time. I actually prefer this to any other Far Cry they brought out because I prefer using bows and arrows over guns. Switch over to the RX 550 from AMD. Similar frame rates to NVIDIA. We might have a little bit 5 frames, maybe more at best. Again, we get that funny colour, slight orange on the recording. Again, it's not down to the graphic card, it's the way it records. For some odd reason, it just goes a funny tinge of orange. I don't know why. Again, I've not worked it out because it don't do it in every game, so it's just bizarre. So don't say, okay, the graphics don't work on AMD. It's to do with the recording, not the AMD graphic card. Now running at 1080p with Intel's RGP 770. It's too slow now. The frame rate's too low to actually play this decently. We've got screen tearing. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I'd probably stay on a 720p setting at high settings. it worked away a lot better. Yes, it is a lot clearer and sharper, 1080p, but you've got to have some trade-offs somewhere along the line. Okay, on the NVIDIA's 1030, 1080p lowest settings. Again, we're just in the 30s. Again, you'd probably be better off running at 720 with the high settings, what we just was on. Now, you have to forgive me, I actually made a mistake for the first 4 runs. I thought I was actually loading up a save. I wasn't. I was actually pressing the continue button. That's why the daylight days look different. It's only from the next one onwards, they are all from the saves. So the frame rate could be slightly different here and there, but I wouldn't have thought it changed that much. Okay, now on the AMD RX 550, set 1080p, lower settings. You can see the screen's gone grainy. This is a bug in the game with the recorder. If I turn off and it lays on, it goes grainy. If I turn it on, it goes away. It's bizarre, but if I turn it on, we get the wrong frame rate. So we've left it off and have to put up with the grain. So yeah, we're doing average 30 odd, 1% low is 34, similar to the NVIDIA 1030 card. There was no freezing or no stuttering or any graphical glitches except for the recorder. So now on a 1650, NVIDIA 1650, 1080p still, at lowest settings. I mean, all runs fine. I mean, obviously the 1650 is going to have no problem. I mean, it's a way faster card than the 550 and the 1030. Has no problem running at all. There are no glitches, no nothing here. Yeah, fine. We're well in the hundreds on the average FPS, and the 1% lows, well, 90 odd. So yeah, no problem running the game at all. So now on the RX 6600, 1080p on lowest presets. All these graphics, by the way, are all with the HD textures. They're not low textures. Everything's on HD textures. Even on the RGB, we had HD textures turned on. So yeah, you can see it flying. This car, we got what, 170 odd frames a second, and 1% low, 140s. So we're gonna have no struggles playing at all with the RX 6600. So now going straight to ultra settings. You get some nice sun rays now with ultra settings. And the motion blur you can have is turned on as well. So for the ultra. So yeah, so the 1650 has no problem playing the game at all. We're in the average of 50s and 1% low is in the mid 40s. So I've got no problem playing at all this game. Now the RX 6600, it's flying. We're still over the 100 average, 1% low, still at the 100 barrier. So no problems at all with this card. You can easily play with 1440p. You probably have to go up to medium settings as well, or even higher. But no, bitches, no problem at all. See the nice sun ray there. Great. No problem at all running this game. Okay, now we've got the chart. So you've got the IGP at the bottom, as we'd expect. But I mean, at the end of the day, it played. That's what most thing. It worked okay. It's not that it didn't run. It ran okay. Then you got the battle for the 1030 and a 550 again. The AMD RX 550 wins. Again, that's probably down to the 2 extra gig of memory. Then we come up to 1080p low settings. Yeah, probably better off again going back to 720p and running our high settings. Then we go up to the big boys, 1650 and the RX 6600, 1080p low settings. None of those cards had no problem. Then we go to Ultra, and again, no problem at all for both of those cards. And the RX 6600, you could probably play in 1440p if you had a monitor to go with it. Far Cry 6. This is what you get if you try to use Intel's IGP. It just don't work. It's just a fuzzy black oval screen. So now I'll switch over to the Nvidia 1030. Same settings, 720p on lowest preset. So we're doing an average of 30 frames, 1% low 13. I think it's the same as what it was on Windows 11. I don't think there was any problems elsewhere. And the same on, I think, when we were running 11th gen. I don't think there's any improvements anywhere. Runs fine, no problem. Okay, we are low, we could do with more frame rate maybe. But it's playable. And it looks okay graphic wise. Switch over to the RX 550. Yes, we have definitely got better frame rates than the Nvidia card. Again, that's probably down a bit more memory. Yeah, so yeah, we're now in the 40s average and 1% lows down to 15. So we still get a bit of drop, but if you look at the minimum frame where we're still in the 40s, so it does well. I've never noticed any major stuttering on any of the cards really. Anywhere or freezing or any other problems, any graphic glitches, everything run fine. We switch back to Nvidia's 1030, this time at 1080p, still at low settings, and now you can see we're on a major struggle. We ain't really getting anywhere at all now, well in the 20s. You've got to remember the Nvidia 1030 and the RX 550 and obviously the IGP were all underpowered for this game. They're not the minimum requirement. The minimum requirement is way higher than these cards. I've now changed the settings on the 1030 to turn on Fidelity FX on balanced. We're getting what? Nearly 10 frames a second. I thought basically performance was too low. Well, it gave it another 5 frames a second, but the actual quality of picture I thought was poor. So, I mean, so you could probably get away with it a little bit more if you wanted to. No problem. You can see, well, what happens when the quality goes up. You can actually see the rain where it's poured down onto the road in a path. Again, we're back on the AMD's RX 550. Same settings as, not with Fidelity FX, but 1080p lower settings. So you can see, yeah, we're doing well. No complaints really. Well, it's still under the 30. So we're still really we're pushing the limits on any game under 30 frames a second. Now with the same settings, but this time with Fidelity FX, and I see we gained a lovely frame rate. It's very well optimized for AMD, this game. It plays well, and now you can play it quite easily with the RX 550 because we're in the 40 frame barrier. Now I'm just going to show you where, okay, we're going to boost up even higher to to quality settings and see what it looks like. And so Fidelity FX on quality mode. We've definitely got a frame boost still. We're in the 40s on average. Minimum's 35. 1% low, still doing that spiky drop, but I've not noticed it on the screen. Looks great. Still a bit of fuzziness, but if we probably turn the anti-lays on, it may go away like we had in Primal. We switch it up to Ultra and see what frame rate we're getting. Let's reset the clock. So we're still in the 30s. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the 550 with Fidelity FX turned on, you can get great looking graphics and great gameplay. So I've got Nvidia's now 1650, 1080p, low presets. I've got great frame rate, averaging in the 80s, minimums at 70s, and yes, we've got that city spike. But again, you don't notice it on the screen where it's coming from. So yeah, it plays fine at the end of the day. So now we're on AMD's RX 6600. See it's a walk in the park. Averaging 130s, the minimum's 120s. At 1% low, it's still there somewhere. Again, I don't notice it on the screen where it's obviously got that big drop, but where it is, I don't know. I've not noticed it anywhere at all. Plays fine, looks great, can't complain at all. I mean, it's obviously optimised for AMD this game over Nvidia. Can't complain with that. It's always the other way around. It has been for years. Nvidia's won everything, but now AMD are coming back. They're sort of like starting to optimise games for AMD, which is great. Back on the Nvidia 1650, now on ultra settings with the HD textures. So yeah, it looks fine, can't complain. Should have done this test without the HD textures as well, but we haven't done so. I mean, it looks great, can't complain really until we play around with Fidelity FX, which we'll see in a second. So now we turn on Fidelity FX, and this is where it goes a bit Google Alley. Now you can see there we're over the 6 gig, well, over the 3 gig limit. We're on 5.5 gig on the video RAM. Now if that was the problem, I don't know. But where you can see we turned it on, the frame rate has just completely dropped down out of blue. Now it should go up, it's gone down. So it's like, what happened here? Don't know. So I thought, okay, I'll come back. We'll turn it off. See what happens. Now you expect it to go back up. And it don't go back up. It just stays where it is. It's basically... So no, we're not going back up. So I don't know what went wrong. It doesn't do it on the RX 6600. So it can only be down to the game is not set up for this card.
Get out of my space.
So now we're on the RX 6600, 1080p ultra settings with the HD textures turned on. So yeah, we've got no problem still running the game. Well, we're doing average 90, 100, 1% low. Still, as I said, regardless what you're running, that 1% low things will have that spike in there somewhere, and yeah, you get that city bug come up. So I ain't got enough memory when we have got plenty of memory. I'm now turned on DXR. Unfortunately, it's not raining. We don't want it to rain. Well, on this test, it would be nice if it rained, but we obviously want to try and compare it with every other card we've got going. So we can't see the reflections or shadows, which DXR is supposed to have. But if we look at the frame rate has dropped. We're now in the 60s instead of the 90s, 100. So the minimum's in the 50s, the 1% low is still there in the 20s. There's obviously something around here what loves that 1% low. So now we've got everything turned on. So I'm on 1080p, ultra settings, fidelity FX, DXR, and fidelity cache settings is turned on. And fidelity FX is at ultra quality, and we've still got a boost. So you can see it's definitely optimized for AMD hardware over Nvidia. So this, in my opinion, this confirms that there's a problem with Nvidia side, or especially with the 1650. We're still going up on ultra settings, not going down. So I don't know what's going on. The only difference between this card, besides being faster, it does have 4 gig of memory extra. It's got 8 gig in total instead of 4. So I don't know if the other card come to a memory problem or what. I don't know, but there's definitely something going on the Nvidia side where it's not running properly. Okay, let's take a look at the chart. As we saw earlier, the Intel IGP doesn't run, but don't forget, the IGP, the 1030 and the RX 550 are under the requirements by Ubisoft to play the game anyway. Okay, so but we under 720p, the 1030 and the RX 520. Trade blows, the RX 550 coming out on top by at least 10 frames a second, but the game is more optimized for AMD over Nvidia. Plus the card has an extra 2 gig of memory. We get the 1080p and both cards are really too slow to play, both under the 30 frames a second. So not that great at all. But when you turn on Fidelity FX, both cards do pull forward. The 1030 still being a bit sad too slow, but the RX 550 has no problem because it gets into the 40s. So again, the game is well suited for AMD hardware. The 1650 and the RX 6600 have no problem playing at any setting really, so got no problem there. If we go up to Ultra for the 1650 and a 1080, the 1650 and a 6600. The Ultra settings, the 1650s in the 40s. Okay, still well, not a problem. Again, as a reminder, the Fidelity FX on the 1650 didn't work. It went backwards. Something bizarre. I've got no idea what's going on there. But okay, we go up to the RX 6600, Ultra settings in HD turned on and DXR. We're still in the 60 frame rate, so we do extremely well. No problem at all. Okay, it comes down 30 frames from HD settings on its own. So the DXR takes up a good 30 frames on its own in performance for the reflections and shadows. We're going to turn Fidelity FX onto ultra quality, and we've still got a boost in frame rate by another 10 frames, so it could easily go down to balance and probably gain another 25-30 frames back, no problem at all. I will do some more test runs on the 1650 and email Ubisoft to see what the problem is and see if we can come back with an answer. Okay, that's me done. Okay, that's me done for the benchmarking this year. hope you'll have a great Christmas, as I said earlier, and a great Boxing Day. And I will see you after Christmas. Have fun all, and don't forget to subscribe.